In this movie, I'm going to show you how to update the DOM tree using Angular.js. So here on this example page, I'm using this shopping list.html file. I have a list of items I want to buy at the store. So what I want to do is that I should be able to click each of these items here. So when I click on the egg or the cheese or the bread, it should look like you see in number 1 here. It's going to cross out that's been purchased and so on. And not only that, I should be able to also add new item to the list as well. So if I say butter, I click add, and that's going to add it to the list. And finally, I want to delete these items from the list. Okay, so let's go to brackets and see how that's done. So here in brackets, I opened this shopping list file. I already included the Angular.js library as well as a custom script here. So the first thing you want to do is you want to bootstrap this to Angular. To do that is right here at the top of the HTML tag, I'm going to issue this ng-app command. And this is going to be my shopping app. That's the module. And then I also want to create my controller. So I'm going to wrap it right into this div tag here. It's ng controller. And I'll just call this one here main controller. And this is the list here. As you can see, I'm just kind of basically hard-coded this in here. But we want Angular.js to automatically populate this for us using the ng repeat directive. But before I continue doing this, I'm going to go right into the script and to build this list first, and then we'll come back and modify this page. So go ahead and create a shopping.angular.js file if you haven't created one. So this is the file. And I already started with this first line of code here. I'm loading the module. And my module is called my shopping app. Make sure it matches. If it doesn't, you will have a problem with the code. And then I'm going to load my controller. The controller is, call it main controller. And I'm passing in the function, passing the scope so that I can access the data in the view. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create this items list. So I'm going to use the JSON notation to create this list. And the first item of the list is going to be milk. So I have a key value pair. So the key for this will be name, and then the value is milk. And a second element here is going to say whether that's been checked or not. So I'm going to set that to true for the first one. And then the second one is going to be called eggs. And the checked is false for this and the rest of them. So what I'm going to do is Control D here, press Control D to duplicate these two lines. And I'm going to go back and change it to cheese and then bread. And this is the last one. So I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to just do that so it loads to the last item there. So this is my list. I'm going to clean up a little bit here. Okay, so that's the scope items. So when I load this into the ng repeat, I'm going to go item.name, item.checked, and so on. Okay, so let's go back to the HTML file. And I'm going to use one of these as an example, and I'll delete the rest. What I want to do is I want to go in here and add in the ng repeat directive. Okay, I'm going to repeat this loop, means for each item in the items list, do the following. So I'm going to have it loop through the entire list. And I'm going to modify this checked so it will do automatically for me. This is going to be my model. This model is going to be the item.checked. Okay, if it's true or false. And then the span, if you notice, you have a check true, check false, check false. So depending on the status of that button, if it's checked or not, right? So I'm going to put a expression here to load the item.check status as well. And then the item itself, I also want to put an expression here to load the item.name. So finally, this is the button. I want to delete this item from the list. So I'm going to issue an ng click event. When I click this button, it's going to remove an item. So I'm going to call it remove item. And then I'm going to pass the index value to the function so that it will remove that particular item. And I think that's about it. So I can remove these pieces now. I don't need this anymore. Here at the bottom of the form is a submission form. I also want to modify this. so that when I click on this form, it should do the submit. When it submits, it's going to call another function. And what am I doing? Well, I'm adding a new item to the list. So I'm going to call it just add item to list. I'll call the function. And I also want to add a model to this input here so that it ties to the controller. So I'm going to call ng model. And this is going to be the item added to the list. So I should call it new item. All right, so new item be added to the list. Okay, do a Control S to save this file. And then go ahead and reload on the browser. And let's see what we have. Okay, so I can see that if I check the egg, so it does work already, so you can see. Okay, let's see if I can add something to the list. As you can see, it doesn't work yet. And because we haven't implemented that yet. So let's go and add the function to add the list. All right, I call this the add item to list. So go back to Angular code here. One thing I want to do also, if you notice right here, I have a model called new item. Okay, right now it's empty. So let's modify that item. So I'm going to call it scope that new item. And this should be set to blank initially. There's nothing there. The function add item to list. All right. Then what am I adding? I'm going to add something to the list. So what am I doing? I'm not replacing the items. I'm just pushing something to the list. Okay, so I'm going to use the scope items push. So push to the stack. I'm pushing the name of the new item, which is going to be scope new item. And also check the status, make that as false. So that is my list. And you see that this one here looks exactly the same as one of these, except I'm replacing a variable here instead of hard coding the value in there. And then finally, I want to reset the scope of the new item back to blank. Okay. Well, let's see if this works. Let's do a Control S to save this and go back to the browser. Do a refresh. Check, still works. Okay, I'm going to add butter. Okay, so you can see it does work. And if you want to press Control F12 to load the developer tools, and you can see the elements on the DOM tree should be updated live. Okay, so I'm going to add another item. I'm going to call this one here water. And if I click on add, you see that it added right to the tree here live. Okay, so the next thing is I want to delete these items. So let's go back to brackets. All right, I want it right below here. And the deleting is pretty easy because all I'm doing is I'm removing one item from the list. Okay, this function. I'm passing the index to the list. I'm not going to pop it off the list because popping means you moving the one from the top. You actually going to delete any item in between. So you're going to be tracked by the index number. So you would use the splice function. So I'm going to do scope, the items, that splice, and then use the index position and return true when I'm done with that. Okay, so that's all you have to do for the remove. And again, let's do Control S to save. Go back to this browser, reload. All right, so the check still works. I'm going to add a new item here. I want to see if it modifies the DOM tree. Add butter. Okay, and then water. Okay, so I'm going to delete milk. And also you can see it actually updated the DOM as well. Remove butter. All right, so that works just fine. But what if I want to just click add right now with nothing in there? So you can see that it's added to the list too, although it's empty, right? And this is something probably you want to fix in the code, and it's a really easy one. So let's fix that. Right here, before you push it to the list, you basically want to wrap this whole thing into an if block. Okay, so you want to say if the item, new item, we're going to trim, make sure no space characters, is blank. And when it's not blank, then go ahead and add the thing to the list. Close that here. And let me tab this over so it looks. Okay, so we just check to make sure it is not empty. If it is, don't add it to the list. So Control S to save, back to the browser, and do a refresh. And now if I add it, it won't add to the list, okay, unless I put something in there. So I hope this is a good example to show you how you can use Angular to update a DOM tree without using jQuery or traditional JavaScript.